Hello. There we go. Okay. Technical difficulties. All right. As I was saying that you couldn't hear me, hello everybody, and welcome back to Tech Yeah, probably the broadest stroke of tech channels on the internet. Thank you so much for joining me on this lovely weekend. It will be short for me, but that's fine. As I've already said this once already, I'm super grateful for the time to be able to interact. So I've been working on this little machine. I've brought it up a few times. It's what I plan on putting in the suitcase down here for a little portable arcade machine, PC concept. Who knows? You know what I mean? I have a plethora of ideas. I just really need money, tools, and time. Other than that, we do have a lot of things set up here. So most of what I'm going to be doing today, after I do some yard chores, is setting up everything for this tutorial to be as interactive as I can possibly make it with the resources that I have available to me. So not a lot that you have to do on your end, but for me, I want to make sure that I have things like text graphics on the screen with commands that I'm going to be running as we set up this web server in WordPress and get Debian 11 installed on here. My live stream last weekend, I couldn't even remember the version number of Debian. I said like 5.4. I was referring to the Linux kernel itself. So you can get newer versions of Debian that run the newer Linux kernel, but all of those are development builds. We're going to be focusing strictly on Debian 11 Bullseye. It's the current release, you know what I mean? We'll be doing everything in relation to that. So first of all, of things that I am prepping is this ISO of Debian is probably over 6 months old or so. I think it's still the same Debian 11 image. I will check to see if there's a newer image. If not, then it's probably going to be more of the same. We'll install. If you're privy enough to have some sort of Ethernet or other internet connection that you can have to your machine, you can also do updates during the install, which is a good idea. It'll save you a whole bunch of time. We will try not to focus so much on that as we're doing the tutorial. Luckily, with Debian, a lot of that stuff can run in the background, so it's not really going to slow us down when it comes to doing this live tutorial style. So we could do the video all fancy and cut up, but I really want you guys to be able to ask questions. And obviously I'm too close to the boomer generation to want to stream on Twitch. I have the multi-stream plugin installed. I have a Twitch account. I've really thought about multi-streaming some of what I do, and perhaps at some point in the future we'll do that, but let's really just focus on trying to do this live tutorial. Hopefully we at least get a few viewers. I really want to encourage people, if you have questions, please put them into the chat as we are going, because my goal here really is to try and teach a few people. Running your own web server and having your own WordPress website it is actually a pretty cool thing. So a lot of people are used to installing Docker and like running Home Assistant, and maybe you don't know what any of those things are. Well, this is a great pathway to understanding how to get to those things. And having your own WordPress is a really good way to have your own little corner space on the internet, that you're not paying an additional fee on top of what you pay for your internet. And you can store as much as you can shove into your computer. You can, you know, the media library on WordPress, you can have files in there, you can have photos in there, you can have videos in there, and you can add those all to your page, like a personal YouTube almost. So there's a lot you can do with it, and it often gets kind of overlooked. And the funny thing about that is there's a huge chunk of the internet that's ran on this particular software. So learning it can actually potentially land you a job, because of the versatility of WordPress. It allows you as a tech person to be able to recommend it to a business, because even if they don't want to host it themselves, all you have to do is go to your Google, on your phone, tablet, computer, it doesn't matter. Go to your Google search and just type in WordPress hosting, and there will be so many options. I think DreamHost, Bluehost, a few of those are among the most popular, or at least the most advertised. So this gives you a good way. So like, even if the company wants to go that route, you can show them, you know, it's professional hosting, and then you're already familiar with the software, and it's a lot simpler. The reason why people like things like WordPress or Squarespace or Shopify is because they take the hard parts out of having to run your own website. Because a time way back, your only option was to connect through cPanel, or even older schools, directly into the directory folder where all the files are stored via FTP or something, and you would have to actually manually commit your file changes. It's really not that way anymore. You kind of handle all of the building and updating through WordPress itself or through Squarespace. You do everything in the application instead of using something like Dreamweaver or FrontPage. Does anybody remember Microsoft FrontPage? I wish I had a graphic to put on the screen, like software from a time long past. So I lived in Microsoft FrontPage for a very long time because it had this really neat feature where you could build your navigation tree, and it would auto like make files and link them, stuff like that. You can actually still do it with Microsoft Publisher. There's an option in there called Make One Page Web Page, and then you literally just right click down where the one page is on the bottom left and hit add another page, and it links, and you can so like you can make a functional website out of Microsoft Publisher if your only goal is to have hyperlinks and display text information or a few pictures or what have you, just for information. One could do that. Even with Microsoft Word, if one was so bold. Anyhow, let's kind of get into this here. So my hope originally was to use an AMD card down here, and that has not worked out. I don't know if it's just the HDMI capture card in specific, which is right here. Obviously right now I do not have this on, but anyways, I was gonna try to hook this up. I had somebody in front of our house. Goodness, it was down the road, but they either ran the stop sign or something, and to avoid kids crossing the street or something, they swerved and went right into these people's yard and took out their fence. So when that happened, my son came and got me, had to end the stream, and it's a good thing that I guess we kind of did, because coming back and testing after all that happened, I found out none of the nicer video cards I had would work. So I tried my RX 578 gig. That one wouldn't boot at all, and I know it for sure works. I even made sure after I put it in the PC it's in now, and I basically built a whole machine just to put this card in and make for certain sure that it still works. So, and then the 580, it also, so like AMD cards so far, I have been unsuccessful, but I've been successful. I booted a 10 with the 1060 the last time I had this PC live on stream. So right now we just got a cheap 1050 in there. It's ran from the power of the socket. There's no PCIe power. And then even this worried me for a second because I wasn't getting any pictures. So I think it might be an option. I was pretty sure that this, I know the capture card has HDCP, but it may not have EDID or whatever they're calling that, the thing that like tells it it's a monitor or something because it's a capture card. I don't know, man. So that gets into the super technicals of like video signals and stuff like that. That's not my forte. This is my forte here. All I know is couldn't get a signal through the capture card, which really doesn't do us a lot of good. I don't want to do a lot of sloppy over the shoulder shots of me, You know what I mean? Obviously I have monitors everywhere, but I just don't see the value in like having. It's dusty in here, man. It's my garage. You know what I mean? Like we really don't need to go through that, right? So hence, better shot. Anyways, so that was step one, getting the card in there would actually boot. So now we're ready to go through and get Debian Linux installed. So for anybody that may watch this either right now, a few minutes from now, an hour from now, I am going to try to probably hold off until later in the evening. I have to go to my grandpa's house and get a TV and some other things. But anyhow, yeah, I've got yard work to do. So probably at some point, if I had to guess, tomorrow, midday-ish, noon, probably. Sometime, probably around, well, about the same time, noon, 1 o'clock. Same time I did the stream today. And we will have, it'll probably be an hour or two long if I had to guess. It does not take that long. But I like to be thorough, obviously, for anybody that's watched some of my content. Usually if I cut it short, it's because I had a bunch of problems. And sometimes trying to also film the stressful parts when you run into those problems. I'm trying to get better about that. But I kind of curse like a sailor, so a lot of it would be just a bunch of beeps, because I tend to go to the F word really fast. When something frustrates me, it's something that I am aware of and I try to constantly work on, just like replacing GD with gosh darn. People think I'm super, I'm like pulling strings for that one, but at the same time, I'm just like, it's just something I try to be socially aware of. Like, obviously, I talk to myself, so when there ain't nobody around, I'm cussing up a storm, for sure. Because I do a job where I'm constantly like alone a lot, and I got to do something to cut the silence. I listen to music a lot, but sometimes I put on podcasts and things, and I'm sure there are other people out there that have a rhetoric with the podcast. It's like, I know it's pre-recorded or they can't hear me, but you know, when you believe in something and you listen to it, you're like, you know what I mean? You're kind of engaged in it, when you, especially if you're driving. I'm looking at you. Don't tell me you don't do it. I know better than that. If I do it, somebody else out there definitely does it. But anyhow, so we will get that done. Look for it to be solid hour or two at least. I'd say two, probably at the very minimum. I am encouraging, invite as many people as you would like to. Yeah, do it live. Do it live. Ask questions. You know what I mean? It will be kind of specific to Debian Linux, though. You can kind of carry over if you really, really want to try to do this with a different distro. There will be some carryover, but Debian Linux is probably one of the eldest distros. One of their mottos is stability. A lot of people really, really want to be on the bleeding edge, but I would say if you're planning on running a server, especially if you're going to do it out of an older machine that you came into. So, for instance, this is a Core i7 7700K. You could pick up a Dell with this exact, even if it wasn't the K, you could get the 7700. Look, man, it may not turbo as long. It may have a little lower clock, but as much of a premium as you'll pay for the K variant, especially the 7th gen, it's just really not worth it. But you can get a whole computer with the 7700 in it for probably $200 less than, probably even in some cases, like $150, if you're willing to get one that's a little bit bigger than your standard little box. But if you do that, it's very cheap, you know. So if you're going to do that and run a server, I would suggest going with Debian, just because, especially with hardware of that era, it's already kind of baked into the Linux kernel. You're gonna have a lot easier time. You got an older graphics card. We're not trying to push the boundaries here. You know, we're really just trying to get something stable, as I've already alluded to. Anyways, I'm a big fan of Debian, but it has its quirks. Because if you start looking up tutorials and stuff on the internet on how to do this on Linux, how to do that on Linux, you're going to run into a lot of stuff that is centered around Ubuntu. And people are like, well, but that's based on Debian, so it should be cool, and it's not cool. These things are not the same all the time. Like, things will correlate. There will be carryover, as I've already said. This will get repetitive real fast, you know, but Debian has its quirks, man, and especially Debian 11, you know what I mean? It's going to be different. There's going to be certain aspects of it, the way it handles certain things, even like the lock screen, even certain files will be in different locations. So it's just not a good idea, if you want to follow along anyways, to try and branch out and go to a different distro. So many people want to dance around trying to like actively recommend you a distro. They just want to talk, oh, it's good because of this, or it's kind of annoying because of this. But I'll leave it up to you. No, I'm telling you. I'm telling you wholeheartedly. I love Fedora. You know what I mean? I was a Red Hat kid for a minute. I still really enjoy that version of Linux. My uncle actually worked for Novell for a while, or he worked with a lot of Novell anyways. And so OpenSUSE was a thing too for a little minute. Anyhow, the experience I've had on Debian, but the setup is different. You'll follow a tutorial, and then you'll be wondering why it didn't work, and that's because in your search query you didn't specifically say Debian 11. You just how to do this on Linux, and like I said, sometimes that will kind of almost work for you. But if you don't get specific in your search, and this goes for any distro, if you don't get specific in your search when you're researching how to do something, chances are you will frustrate yourself. You'll give up, and then you'll go back to using Windows. Even if you're going to do this on, and it's not recommended, because really the only way to do this successfully on like a regular Windows desktop is either to find some clever way to do it through the Linux subsystem for Windows, or run XAMPP. But traditionally, it's not a good idea to leave open ports like that for services like HTTP open directly to a Windows machine. I just don't think that's a good idea. It's not recommended. Even people will tell you while you're learning web development, it's okay to run XAMPP on your local machine as you're developing, but it carries some serious vulnerability risks if you choose to start port forwarding a router through to XAMPP. Some tutorials will just tell you to do that, and they won't warn you that may not be a good thing. So I'm warning you right now. It may not be a good idea to run software like that on your Windows machine and then open it wide open to the internet. It just, like I said, it's good for learning, but don't run your business from that. You know what I mean? Like, Windows feels comfortable. We're used to it. We've been using it since we was little babies in school. But I'm telling you, learn a little bit of Linux, because you'll be happy you did at some point, because you just take the machine, set it up. You can log into the desktop completely remotely without setting up really anything else fancy. You don't have to get a special machine or anything. It all just works. There's it's literally just a command. That's a software called XRDP. Most distros have a version of it. Debian is no different. You literally can use Windows remote desktop software right off of Windows, so there's nothing else you have to install on your Windows machine. You literally just search remote desktop. You punch in your IP address of your Linux machine after you've done the XRDP step, which we will cover in the tutorial, and you can log in remotely from wherever you are. And if you're so bold, you can also put that on a port of your choosing, port forward that through your router, and bam, Linux environment wherever you are in the world. No Linode. You know, it might not be practical to run a gazillion of these at your house, but if you wanted to play around on Linux and you started running software from it, you know, you might want to access it somewhere when you're not at home, and the possibilities are always there. You can log in console through SSH. There's a lot that you can do. Not that you can't remotely log in through Windows, but specifically when it comes to running a web server or a Home Assistant server or Plex server or Plex Home Assistant and WordPress, because you could do all three from the same machine realistically, especially if you only plan to have a handful of users like the people in your house. It's perfectly acceptable to do that, especially like this, 4 cores, 8 threads, 7th gen. It'd be fast enough, I would think, as long as there's not a lot of people. And even though it's a older GPU, it should have enough transcoding for at least, not going to do 4K or anything, but it should be pretty solid at having all my stuff at 1080p. It just really depends, but I'm getting too technical into that. Try to focus more on this tutorial. But yeah, this is the weekend update that I wanted to do for you guys, let you know I am working on it. I did see that I had a comment or two on the post that I put, if you guys wanted to see this. And it's kind of exciting because after we do this, I really want to try to look into probably installing Batocera on here. For anybody that's unfamiliar, Batocera is basically a version of Linux, but it's like an arcade machine. It's got a bunch of emulator machines and stuff already built into it, and it's already made to be navigated with a joystick. It has like the album art and all that kind of thing. It almost looks like one of those Pandora's boxes or whatever that you buy off of Amazon. Difference being it's PC, much more powerful hardware, so the ceiling at which we can emulate is much higher, and that's really neat. I like the premise of that because I would like to be able to, the suitcase has a 4x3 monitor in there, 17-inch, and that's really cool for when you have it on the go, but once you plug it in and allow it to go HDMI out, I think it would be really neat to be able to emulate, you know, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, things like that. Get some couch co-op gaming go on, you know, some nostalgic stuff from a time already past. But I kind of miss couch co-op games in a way, man. They really brought you and your buddy together. It's so disconnected now. It's like you in your room and your buddy in his room, halfway across the town or whatever. And I just kind of miss having that, like, dude, come over, let's play some video. You know what I mean? But I'm almost 40 now, so maybe I should just get with the times, right? Anyways, I think I've yapped at the camera enough here for the past, we've been live for 30 minutes. I haven't seen any comments or anything come through in the chat, so obviously it's the middle of the day. It's Saturday. Everybody's out doing stuff. It's popping. It's nice out. I completely understand that, which is why we're not going to be doing this right this second. So if anybody has objections to noon, 1 o'clock tomorrow, and I'm open to that. Tommy Viper, I'm kind of looking at you. You're one of the more vocal commenters. So obviously I want somebody to be able to benefit from it. It'll be available on YouTube, of course, after the fact, like everything is. But if you want to catch it live and get live support for maybe something that you're working on, a little bit of background on me, you know, I went to school for Cisco networking. I've kind of been all over the place, but recently I landed a job as a software developer for a company called Mastermind, and they make a software called Mapster and a few other pieces of software. I won't get into too much detail, but they do a lot of things related to road safety and road studies and keeping GIS location tracking and asset management, stuff like that. Like a bunch of boring buzzwords I could throw at you. Sounds boring, but it's really not. You know what I mean? It's been a really great experience. But anyways, I have experience in this. Is what I do for my job, and especially when it comes to me, I'm one developer. We have a team that develops our software, so I'm more of the software guy for the office. So it's my job to help bring everything in, make marketing more productive, you know, emailing systems, and so I've used WordPress with a few really creative auto emailing plugins for marketing. To simplify the process of making emailers and doing auto mailers and subscription mailer and things like that. So if you want to get on the road to being able to do stuff like that, and these are desirable skills still, and it's something that you can even market yourself, go around to businesses in your local area. If they're looking to run a website, you can work a deal with them. It's more these days about selling your service than it is about selling a product. So, anyways, if you'd like to check that out, catch us tomorrow. I'll be working on it from this point, after I mow, of course. But like I said, I want to try to put as many of the commands into text prompts here in OBS, so that way you really get an idea and it's solidified into the live video forever. So that way it's there, you can backtrack through it. Eventually I might cut it up unless somebody might have some available time to do that. You're free to download it from YouTube and cut it into something more manageable. I'm all ears when it comes to getting any kind of help with this, because having that job doing software development, and I've been out on the road also doing the data collection part of it, I really haven't had a whole lot of time to sit and edit any video. And that's just because I have to appropriate my time where it's appropriate. So, catch me tomorrow. If anybody has suggestions on a later time, let me know. Comment on this video now that it is over. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, wait. I almost thought that this was going to be a wash too. Watch this. I almost let the video stop. So, I did get finally a video signal, but it was green. Oh, see it? See how it's green right here? So, this took me, I've seen this happen before actually with the same capture card. So, I had to have faith that it was just because some sort of driver or something hadn't been loaded yet. And thank goodness I was right. So you see it there, it went from green to black. And it should, nope, see, it's going to do the same thing here. So this is something I'm going to look into. I loaded Gparted, the disk partitioner, right before I did the live stream, and loading into Gparted, which let's just do that real quick while we're here and thinking about it. Okay. Don't ever do what I do. I don't have any spinning drives. Oh, and then we also just got this in today too. It's a 256 gig SATA SSD. It's not a huge SSD. It's a team group, just like the 1 terabyte I have over here on the wall mount PC. I didn't need a large one, but this one we should be able to use for this. And then I also have some M.2 to PCIe 1X, and I have the Vista machine with the Pentium 4 hyper-threaded, and it has some PCIe Express slots in it. Not only for the video card that we put a Pegatron, it was NVIDIA 310. It's not a powerful GPU, but it's still 2 gigs, I think, of something. I can't remember what GDDR it might have. But anyways, I would like to put, and I have a M.2, an extra M.2 SSD. So I would like to put that in there and see if we can get that working in this Pentium 4. And then install, even just put Vista on it. I have the Vista ISO, so could put Vista on there, take a look at it, give it an SSD just like we did the Windows 98 machine. It does have SATA on board, but I feel like I want to push and see, because it's probably only SATA 1. It's only 158 megabits per second, which means maybe 15, 20 megabytes a second as we're testing it. So I'm just curious to know if we use a PCIe X1 to M.2, if A, we can even do that on this Pentium 4, and if we can, what kind of speeds can we get? So it's an interesting bit. A lot of people tuned in for the Windows 98 SSD upgrade, so I think this adding an M.2 drive to a Pentium 4, I think that's the logical next step. Please let me know. Anyways, I have the G-parted ISO here somewhere. What did I do with it? Oh, goodness. There it is. All right. So, G-parted is the GNOME partition utility. They actually have their own. It's a stripped down version of Debian Linux, but it's a live Debian, and then it also has all the partition tools that you need. Truthfully, a lot of people, even there's the Navicat or whatever USB. It does have a lot of cool tools built into it, but generally, from what I've found, there's almost nothing desktop PC wise when it comes to fixing an operating system or recovering data, unless something is just so far gone where you have to start swapping chips out and stuff. I've pretty much been able to get, like, the Windows 98 PC, for instance. That's how I found out the install was there. I did recover customers' old data off of there was pictures, documents, all that stuff, and loading it right into G-Part. It doesn't matter if you got a password on your Windows machine unless you've encrypted the drive. But a lot of people, especially if you're buying your PC from Walmart, it doesn't come out the box like that. So, anyways, let's start this up and I'll show you what I'm talking about, this green screen here. Okay. I'm confused. I just did this. There. Jeez. OP. Now, chances are it's gonna. I think I might have saved it for 1080p. but it might revert back into 4K. So everything's gonna get super, super tiny. I'll pick this. See there? It's not green anymore. It loaded a driver for the card of some sort. Either that or it's Wayland. I'm not sure exactly yet, but I do know that. See what I mean? It's super, super duper tiny and hard to see, you guys. And for that, I apologize here. There we go. Get my face out of the way. So, see how dinky tiny? So yeah, the dinky tininess is moreover the issue that was having here before, but at least everything now is in color, which thank goodness, you know, right? Like, so we know we don't have any bad components. There's our new SATA SSD. We can actually do all of our formatting here. We could go ahead and set up partitions and all that stuff for Linux manually through this utility if we wanted to. Or we could even, like I did in the Windows 98 PC video, we can clone a whole Windows, you know, because Windows puts in a few different partitions. We can clone the whole disk using the DD command and clone it over to a new drive. And we can do all of this without a special software that we have to pay $69.99 for or some monthly subscription. This is all stuff you can just go get right now and start using right now. So yeah, isn't that neato burrito, you guys? We will try to find the correct resolution here. There we go. Hit apply. And there we go. This should be in line with the stream now. I hit save last time. It didn't really seem to matter. I think it's moreover because of the capture card that it keeps choosing to default to the 4K. It's obviously something that we won't have to contend as much with, but so I'm pretty sure we will have to deal with that green unless they figure out what's exactly causing it through most of the Debian install, unless it's specifically related to this NVIDIA card somehow and we get an NVIDIA specific install. But the only operating system really doing that is Pop! OS, and I like Pop! OS, but when it comes back to the stability thing, if I was going to use it to run the web server and also use it as like my daily PC, which again is probably not the best idea because you'll have a lot of people accessing your PC while you're trying to use it. But if you wanted to do that, I could see you using Pop! OS for that. So like if you wanted to sit down and actually try to use one as a computer, if you're a regular Windows user, you might like Pop! OS. It might feel a little like you're using Mac, like a little taboo. It's not like Mac indicative, but it's the rounded corners, the poppy animations. It really feels Mac-like in a way. Or maybe that's not the best way to describe it. Tomato, tomato. Anyhow. So, that's a look into what we have here. So far, I'm going to get to work, you guys, so I can get this tutorial put together in an engaging manner. I'm really, really hoping to get at least a few people some help. And at the very least, once we move into things, because the next one I would like to do Home Assistant, and we'll probably touch Plex at some point unless I find something a little more useful than that. But I'd like to start with this because, especially if you have a smartphone, pretty sure if you're watching this, you do, that you can store photos and videos in your media center on your WordPress. and then log in remotely and show them to whoever. And you don't have to pay a Google Photo subscription to do that. You don't have to pay a Vimeo subscription to do that. You literally just have to have enough storage in your machine and have this. And it, at its very core, it's not as difficult as it may seem. It's a few text commands, and it's editing a few text files through the command line. Word salad. Anyways, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for listening to me drone on. I am gonna exit over here real quick. Still no chat, so comment on the video if you have any questions. Thank you. Yeah, I'm always a deer in the headlight when it comes to ending anything. I just want to sit here and talk about computers and software and Linux and just all day. But I will never get anything done if I do that. So, bye now. Later.